Well, welcome to Friday at just about 10. And it's time for the very much misnamed relaxing painting, but not very much misnamed with Dice and Dungeons. I am continuing to plug away at this Apollo model, and that's what I'll be doing today. Is hopefully, hopefully I will get what you will soon see a myriad of little spindly, fragile parts for the the landing struts for the descent stage of the lunar module. Hopefully, I will finish. Oh, let's just say getting rid of uh, irregularities, failures. Basically, they weren't molded very well. There's a lot of flashing. There's a lot of mold marks. And I think I got rid of like 90% of them over the last couple of streams. And so I need to check them out one more time and then get them ready to be primed and painted. And they're all going to be painted gold except for a ladder and a platform, which will be painted some sort of metallic silvery color. And I'll pick one that would hopefully be appropriate. Yeah, so I have to just say that this, unlike the submarine, which if any of you watched that construction, it was slow and difficult and everything else, but it did involve a lot of painting, a lot of very minute, sometimes detailed painting, sometimes not so detailed, but there was a lot of painting involved. With the Apollo thing here, not so much. Maybe in the command module. I'll try to do some detail painting on the control panels, but for the most part, it's been just sanding down irregularities in the molds, the plastic injection molded parts. There will be. I saved it for today. Yeah, this you might recall from Wednesday was the rocket nozzle from the descent stage. And there is an opportunity to do a little painting here today, and that is because when I painted the inside of it black, and it came out really quite nice and matte black, right? I put an alligator clip on it, which means that when I take this off, there's going to be a little white spot there on camera. There's going to be a white spot there, and I will paint that. So that will probably be the extent of relaxing painting on this stream today. There it is. You can barely see it. Here you can see it on this side a little better. Yep. And what's going on here? Well, that's where the clip was, but that won't show. This will show because when you look inside the nozzle, you'll see that white spot. So the extent of relaxing painting today is going to be painting that white spot black. I don't know. I'm tempted to do it now, but then we won't have it for later. So I'll save that for a time when I need to relax with some paint. I'm feeling particularly incoherent today. I'm not sure why. So this is the model, and sometime later in this stream, I'm going to show off the parts that are finished, which are the escape tower, the service module, and the thing you can see here, which is the ascent stage, the part that holds the astronauts of the lunar excursion module. I may or may not show off the parts for the fairing in which this whole thing sits. They are painted, they're ready to be assembled, but as I've said before, I haven't assembled them because once they're assembled, then there's this tower that's like 9 inches tall that I have no place to put. This is a really cool model, but I'm going to have no place to put it when it's done. Just like the submarine, which is sitting there over there under some paper towels to try to keep the dust off of it. It's like, what do you do with these things when they're 2.5 feet long or 2 feet tall? You know, display cases for those things to keep them dust free would end up costing like 5 times more than the model, including all of the paints and everything that went into it. Anyway, this is the thing I'm building. This is done. Okay. So it looks like this without the spindly bits. And then the landing gear, okay, is made up of all of these parts. This is attached to the top of the descent stage. And then all the rest of this is supposed to just sort of hook on. The only thing that's cemented on are these little struts on the bottom here, which supposedly are supposed to be, put on early in the process, but I'm a little reluctant to do that because if they're not aligned correctly, like if they sag a little bit or if they're up, if they're not aligned, we go. if they're up too high or down too low, then the rest of the parts aren't going to fit. So I'm thinking that the best way to do that is to not put them on until everything else is put together, and then to kind of cement them in. And then the little platform and landing pads and stuff are done. The whole thing here is wrapped in gold mylar foil. The real LEM actually was wrapped in real gold mylar foil. And a lot of this was painted gold coated. I think it was coated with gold, just like the visor on the moon guy was. So yeah, that's how that's going to get painted. Anyway, yeah, these spindly little bits, most of which are not cemented on, only one part is, they fold out like this, and then when they're in the fairing that holds them, they're folded in. And there they are, white on white. You can barely see them. Is all of these little bits, only one of which has been broken and had to be repaired. One of these here has been broken and repaired once. So, what I'm going to be doing is basically running my finger over each of these tiny little pieces to make sure that the flashing, the ridge that was left, when the injection molding occurred, is pretty much gone. I think right over this right here, and I can feel this one there, that there is still that there. And the problem with that is that it's on the sides, and the sides show when it's assembled, and when it's painted gold, instead of looking like a tube, it will look like a tube with a ridge on it. So this one, like right here, will require sanding. So that's what I'll be doing. And you get to watch me run my thumb or finger over the edge. And when it catches, like that's catching, okay, on this ridge that's still showing, and I'll get a piece of sandpaper out and rub it down a little bit and hopefully clean that up. At some point, I will test one of these, I think. I'm really not. See, I don't get how this is supposed to go together. So test fitting will be interesting. These are supposed to go, there's no flexibility. So these are supposed to like go in this hole here and stick in there and not break. But it's fragile. It's really, guess that'll go. I don't know. We'll do some test fitting and see. Something is supposed to be cemented in there though, and I'm confused about the parts. Oh, okay. Those go on and they're not cemented. Oh, it's the wishbone thing here. Okay. Yeah. Huh. I'm just playing around with this. Why not? Huh. Why not? See if I can break something early on. So this hooks in like this. That gets cemented. These get cemented down here. Got it. Okay. And then that hook. Wow. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Not sure what the point of this is. It doesn't really hold it on. Oh, I see. Okay. Once this is hooked on like that, this is supposed to be cemented in a way that holds it on so it doesn't pop. And this. Yeah, well, and every single little bit is threatening to break at every moment as it all comes together. Great. So none of this really fits very well, and it's all very fragile, and it's supposed to fold down and fold out, and then support the entire weight of not just this, but the ascent stage, this bit that sits on top. Okay, right. That's going to go well, I can tell right off. It just sort of hangs together. It's supposed to just hang together, except for this little bit down here where I showed you that is cemented into the bottom. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, this will be interesting. I really hope that I can get it to flex like it's supposed to, to fold up and unfold. Because otherwise, what I'll end up having to do is like cement it in the open position, and it won't fit in the fairing. And if it doesn't fit in the fairing, then it isn't going to be possible to recreate, as the instruction manual shows us, the entire Apollo mission, which is why all these parts are supposed to come apart so that you can play with them and recreate the mission with your model. Okay. Well, let me just start working on these parts because they have to be done. And then I can try to test fit like the one I was working on, just to see how those things are supposed to work. And hopefully I'll get an idea of how that's supposed to work, and it will work, and then I won't have to repair pieces. This is the it sagged a little bit, or at least I can't see with these glasses on up close. Trifocals, it's like I guess this is okay. This is the platform on which the astronauts walk when they come off of the ship. And this is going to not be painted gold. This is going to be painted kind of a dark silvery gray. Reason this isn't lined up right. It's off by, I don't know if you can see it, but this space here, this distance here is less than this distance here. And that's just where the holes were that this thing's attached to. Well, it'll be like I keep saying, it's going to have to be one of those things where you look at it under somewhat dim light from a distance no closer than 18 inches. Okay. Well, there's nothing for it other than to dive in with some 800 grit sandpaper, which I'm sure I have some here. 600. Steel. No, 600. This is the one. Okay. So, like I said, I'm just going to be running my thumb and my fingernail over the edges. The inside of the rungs are a little bit saying is the inside of the ladder is hard to get to. Yeah, those are showing. I can't get to it with the sandpaper. I don't like using the file if I don't have to, but it's all white on white on white, so it's fairly invisible, but say that the two halves of the mold didn't fit together perfectly, and then they leave a seam. They leave a seam where there's excess plastic that oozed between the two parts of the mold, and then that becomes visible. So as I'm trying to get, score a solid B on this model in terms of, quality of construction and painting and all that, I do take the time to try to get as many of the seams to not show as possible, like the raised seams from the mold, and then the open seams that happen when parts are cemented together. Doesn't close the gap. Excuse me. No, that might be as good as it gets. So I'm gonna set the done parts out here on the brown cardboard, so that the accumulation of parts that are finished will, you'll start to see that there are parts that are finished. And then I'm going to Get some doubles. I need to prime these and paint them. Need to be primed and painted on both sides. All the surfaces. There aren't any hidden surfaces, even like these pins that are part of the hinge mechanism. Okay. Even those you'll be able to see them. And so everything will have to be painted. And what I've found, and there's probably some way to do this that I don't know, is these are really light. And so when they're sprayed either with a spray can or an airbrush, it doesn't matter. They're so light that they go, they just get blown away. And I've had parts fly halfway across the room in which I was doing the painting that way until I learned that double-sided tape was kind of important. So the way that happens, for me at least, is that I put little pieces of double-sided tape down, I put it down, and I spray it, and then I wait for it to dry thoroughly, and then flip it over and do the same. Yeah. Then these need to be primed and then painted gold. So it'll be a 4-step process, right? Prime, flip, prime, probably not flip it again because, it doesn't matter then. Paint, and then flip and paint. So I can do that efficiently. I can, instead of doing 3 flips, I can do it with 2 flips. Yep. Prime, paint, paint. There we go. That's the amateur modeler tip du jour. That was my what is this show about really? What is this painting stream or sanding stream or just modeling stream at the moment anyway? What's it all about? And I had to keep reminding people that I'm not a master modeler and I'm not a master painter. So if anyone is watching this thinking that they're going to learn how to do something, build models and paint them at an A+ level, that is not going to happen. As you can see, I have a highly sophisticated workbench here, a piece of cardboard. Paints are, scattered about. I don't know how to use an airbrush effectively without making a hideous mess. I've finally settled on this, and I find it kind of up with words today. Yep, no words. Things that happen as one gets older is I know that word. What was it? Anyway, it was a good thing to discover that what this show is how to build pretty nice models. It's pretty good. Not to, what I would say, scoring a solid B in terms of presentation. How to build, it's pretty good. Not to say it that way, otherwise you don't get the full effect of it. On a budget, So the major expense, other than model kit, and some of them can be kind of expensive, especially vintage ones like this. This is from the 90s, I think it was made. It's probably a copyright date on the instructions somewhere. So yeah, this stream, other than providing ongoing promotion of our Dyson Dungeons and Dragons show, and that's the real point of it, is how to do a model that is pretty good level, without a heavy investment in modeling stuff. Okay, so the major expense is going to be the model kit and the paints, and those add up, especially if you're not using an airbrush and then using spray cans, and then buying like 4 different colors of green to make sure that you're getting the right green. I've done that, but you don't have to if you go to a model shop, and say I need this color, then they'll usually have like color charts, and so you don't have to go just based on the bottle cap or the can top or something. So your paints will be another expense, and then it's okay. Probably need to pay a little bit of money for some decent brushes, but you don't have to get like the $20 brushes. You can probably get like the $6 brushes. The important thing is that they have to be really fine. Like one that I'm using is like 10-0. Okay, like 10-0. If you're doing really detailed things like control panels for an airplane, or you're trying to get the seat belts painted just right, or you're highlighting the rivets or something like that, and you can do that, right? I mean, you can really get into that incredibly fine detail. You probably want to get even a 20-0 and a 30-0 brush, and then you'll need some bigger ones for larger surfaces, like the outside of this rocket nozzle. Okay. Now get some decent brushes. And then acrylic paints are good because you can usually clean them in just water. And if water isn't enough, I use isopropyl alcohol, which is like rubbing alcohol that you can get anywhere. And it's not, and you get to use, like used yogurt containers, or get different kinds of food in and stuff, right? For your rinses. Yeah. This one's not good at all. It's like I missed that entire side. That's why I'm checking all of these over again. It's like when I did this, I missed the entire outside of that strut. I can even see it. So obvious. So this is like the equivalent of measure twice, cut once. Just look at all these little dingly surfaces and stuff. It's quite possible when rotating them to lose track of what's been done and what isn't. And so it's a good idea to, like I'm doing here, to double check it all. Using the 600 on it would go faster. Yeah, I'm going to, because it's just, that is really not good. Yeah, this is why I'm doing it, why I'm taking the time to do it twice, to go over all of the surfaces again, because like that. And that would have been, it really would have been obvious if I hadn't caught it. and it's particularly uh, particularly big bridge on it. But taking the time to get that ridge off with the sandpaper is the difference between a solid C or even C minus model and hopefully a grade B model in terms of how it looks at the end. There are many opportunities in building a model like this to really mess it up. And when I did the submarine, I did that a couple of times where something that was really, it was okay, just leave it alone. And I didn't, and it made a mess of it. When I did the service module, I did that. I thought, well, there's some highlights here. I mean, there's some texture here, some detail that, well, I missed that too. This whole inside of this. There's some detail here that, should be highlighted with some paint, and I did, except that I used a very fine pointed felt tip pen, which gave me a little more control than the paint would. And there was an infinitesimal little dot, tiny little dot of the ink that was where it shouldn't be. And I tried to cover it up. And that turned out to be a disaster because the touch-up paint dissolved the ink, okay, because it was ink and not paint. So it didn't cover it up. It dissolved it and spread it around. And I ended up having to go back and reprime and repaint the entire piece. And then I just said, I'm not going to try again. That detail is not going to be highlighted with a different color of paint, which was too bad because it actually looked pretty decent, except for the tiny little dot that I decided to the tiny little dot that I decided I would try to cover up and then made a mess of it. So that was a how not to do it moment. And occasionally there's that. Sometimes, it's possible to learn more by learning how not to do it and getting it just perfectly right the first time. Or I'm just saying that as kind of an excuse for just messing it up. Comforting. That was the word I was trying to find. It was comforting to come to a conclusion about, if this were a modeling show, if this were a stream about modeling, to what audience is it really intended? One audience it's kind of fun to watch and listen because there's always going to be an oops. You never know when the oops is going to happen or how big it is or how it's going to get fixed or not fixed. So it's kind of like the people who go to auto races for the accidents. Accidents don't make for very good racing. It really kind of gets in the way of actually, running a race. But some people are like that, and then some people probably watch this stream or listen to it for the same reason that people go to races, because of the accidents. Okay, well, they're coming along. These pieces, we're not going to find too much on them unless I just manage to miss a side of one, which is possible. It's possible that I just missed the piece. you know, like one side of one of these arms. Other people might watch the stream because, or listen to it because they like to hear about the destruction of the TV antenna and vacuum tube industries, or speculation about Mr. Ed, or, you know, which was better, the Flintstones or the Jetsons. Just doesn't matter what's happening with the model. It's the monologue. And if anybody's in chat, maybe the dialogue or trialogue about 1950s and 60s television. But, you know, learning how to make models would not have been one of the reasons, until, because this is just not what this is. This isn't let's do something really spectacular in terms of making a model that is deserving of a museum display case. But if one considers that this is, how do you make models that are, yeah, not too bad, that's pretty nice, that's okay, or pretty good, you know, how do you make models that are like pretty good if what you're working with is pretty much a, you know, a piece of cardboard and some sandpaper and a couple bottles of paint and some brushes? This is, you know, this stream would be okay for that level of modeler. You know, this one, you know, you'd learn about, you know, running your finger and fingernail over the edges of tiny little pieces that are like this that need to be sanded down because the model kit that you bought, the manufacturing quality is not pretty good. Manufacturing quality was just kind of not so hot. And that's what's happening with this model, is that there's not too terribly much, not very much assembly. You know, it looked like it would be a pretty sophisticated thing to assemble, but there hasn't been that much assembly, and what there has actually been a little bit challenging. Oh, yeah. So just in terms of, you know, see if I can remember it past this part. And then I'm going, okay, this is really not too good here. There's, to, you know, apply a little bit of pressure with the sandpaper to do the effective abrasion. But this is like one of the parts that I broke. They're really pretty fragile. What I'm trying to remember is that there's a hole in the base, the major section, the body. Yeah, the body, I'll call it lunar descent stage, lunar module descent stage. And it shouldn't matter, except that I tried, I tried to do something that was a little more detailed than necessary. Okay, trying to make the model look really pretty good. And it requires, I have to do something to it before I paint it. Okay, show it to you in this. I'm just gonna, I will do a flip as soon as I show this thing. So this is the lunar module descent stage. The ascent stage sits up here. This doesn't look like much until you get all these little spindly bits around it on the legs, right? Then it'll be okay. And then wrap this in the gold mylar foil, which will make it look cool. But on the bottom here, nice. This is where the rocket nozzle goes. Yep. Okay. And I says to myself, this is white. And if somebody were to, I don't know why someone would do that, but they might turn it over to, inspect the quality of the work that was done. You'd want the inside to not look white. So I painted the inside black. Okay. And then this goes on here so that when you look in, it's black, like the inside of a rocket engine might be. But when this is going to be painted, it's going to be sprayed, and the spray is going to go through that hole into the inside. And then it won't be black anymore. And I suppose, one approach would be to take a brush and some black paint and just repaint the whole thing. Then that would be, I could do that. So I'll keep that in mind as an option. The other is that this whole thing is going to be, it was painted, it had gold mylar foil around it. All the legs and things were painted gold or gilded, essentially. I think the whole thing, all these struts and the landing gear parts were essentially gilded. But I don't think that this section in here where the rocket nozzle was would necessarily be gilded. And so I'm going to be painting this very carefully to have a nice clean edge around it, right? It'll be gold around the outside because that's going to show, and probably there. But I think this circular part I'm going to be painting a little lighter color than the nozzle, but a dark aluminum, okay, because it houses the rocket nozzle, and that wouldn't necessarily be gilded. So, instead of, I'm just going to put a piece of tape over the hole. And when I paint this, some of it will be on the raw plastic, but I think it'll hold okay. It's not going to be highly visible, as you can see around the nozzle. And it's not going to be subject to any kind of abrasion. So I'm going to do that now. Otherwise, I am not going to remember to do that. We're doing some relaxing, cutting off a piece of tape and seeing if it will cover that hole without covering too terribly much else around it. It was close, but not quite. It just needs to move over that way. I really, I'm just going to mess with this. Why not? Because why not? What I just really should do is just get a tiny little sliver of tape and put it there, right? But no, I'm going to mess around with this. It's going to delay the flip just a little bit, but there it is. So yeah, some little bits of this are not going to be primed when I paint this dark aluminium, but the inside will still stay dark. Yeah, it's pretty nice and symmetric. That was an A, definitely an A minus. Definitely, I scored that high on the application of that square piece of tape. So the top of this there's something similar that's going to be happening. The ascent stage, the part that holds the. It is. It was A minus taping. Pretty good, huh? The ascent stage sits on top of this, and this is where the rocket nozzle of the ascent stage is supposed to sit. So the circle for sure, and maybe the square part as well, will also be painted that dark aluminium color because it wouldn't be gilded because it's just going to get hit with rocket exhaust. So there. Checking these parts. And then I'll do a flip. Okay, well that'll do for the moment at least. Yeah, that was good. I did some expert taping. Got to see the difference between like a C+ taping job and A- taping job there. Okay, flip. I'm just going to flip a little thing here because I've got these carts sitting there. This is just as a tiny little piece of balsa wood that has a dot on one side and a no dot on the other side. And this might go flying on the floor or something, but if it hits one of these, it's not going to be a problem. There, no dot. No dot. No dot. No dot. Really? There, finally it landed dot side up. I was beginning to think that now it's 2 in a row. Huh. 3 in a row. We're violating all the rules. Yeah. Oh, it landed on its edge. There we go. Lucky toss. I'm just sitting here admiring the fact that this little piece of balsa wood landed on its side and not on one flat side or the other. Okay, yeah, more of these. There's more of these in the box. 8 more pieces plus the little landing pads. Yeah, this way, I don't want to lose that little flipper thing there. So I'm wondering if anybody's watching this stream anymore, because I was gone. The summer schedule has been definitely erratic because of travel, and it's going to remain that way. Unfortunately, through September. This one is going to be a challenge. I mean, this particular part this very specific part, because it is warped. Look at that. You know, it's just warped. And maybe when it's held in place by all the other parts, the warp won't show. Or maybe not. So, and it's one thing to have these ridges on it, like this one. This is like I didn't even get to this at all. Ridges are showing, the little seams are showing pretty badly. But the part itself is warped. And it's not warped, it's warped in different directions on either side. Ever did this the first time around, this one. It's really bad. It's really a mess. And as I'm looking at it, there's these holes on either side. Something is supposed to go in there. I think it's supposed to be this. Kind of. This particular piece, the seams are really high. They're requiring a good deal of sanding. It's warped. I'll never have a lot of this to come through. This. That's why I'm double checking these, because this piece, it's like that one other one where I missed one side of one of the V's or wishbones. I missed this one. Maybe I was just so ticked off that it was warped that I just set it aside and didn't clean it up. But when the raised seam is so obvious that one can see it, not even feel it, but just see it, then it's it's not going to look good. That's what you get. I'm doing on time here. Oh, an hour into it. Okay. All right. I have, allergies to practically everything outside, and I spent a good deal of time outside yesterday, and then a pretty significant change in air pressure, which whatever anybody says or doesn't say does make a difference. But air pressure change can make one feel pretty achy. But, this thing is a low pressure system that's flowing around to the north of us, which means that it's bringing up all sorts of pollens and dust and everything else from south of us as the wind swirls around. So it's just another source of more antigens. Yay. This part is just needing a lot of work. And it seems to have escaped the cleaning up the first time around, or at least pretty much escaped. But that warp is pretty amazing. The other ones are going to have the same issue of really big visible seam on the inside of the Y here. That's not. Yeah, that part of it is just not having any place to hold it. I have to make sure my finger is pretty firmly in the back of it, because if I just put pressure on it, it'll snap off. Doing this, and I'm thinking, there's probably like at least a 50% chance that when it comes time to assemble these things, that they're not going to fit. They're not going to hold together. The LEM landing gear is just going to be, it's just not going to fold up the way it's supposed to. Yeah, that will be a grave disappointment, is to, make this effort and then have it not work the way it's supposed to, because the parts don't fit. But that could very well happen. Okay, well, now that's better. See what the rest of these are like. Seem to have, I don't know if I did these like at the end of a stream or something, these particular parts, but I did not clean them up very well the first time around. Up for it here. Oh, okay. So one other thing I need to do is as I am thinking this through. Okay, this stream is also about not just going, oh yeah, I should do that, like putting that piece of tape over that hole, right? Or one of those cut the red wire. But first, I was just having one of those but first moments. As I'm sanding this down, I'm creating a lot of dust. Wait, you can see it here on my fingers, like plastic dust, and that needs to come off of these pieces before they are painted. Otherwise, paint isn't going to adhere. It'll adhere to the dust, but the dust won't adhere to the surface underneath it, or it'll create a texture problem. The texture problem isn't quite as serious on these little struts as it is on something like the body of the of the LEM. Yeah, it should be cleaned up, and then I've probably got oil on it for my fingers. So one of the very boring things you'll get to watch is to watch me wash these. Just get a paper towel with a little bit of isopropyl on it, and before I attach them to the two-sided tape, the piece of cardboard I'm going to use to hold them when I paint them. And I'll be doing that later in the stream. I wasn't quite sure what will happen in the stream today because, these parts had been gone over once before. So I thought I'd, pretty quickly go over them again. And then I'm not sure I even did these. Wow. This whole strut has a seam that looks like it's never been sanded. Did I just miss parts? Like, oh, I'm going to get to that next week, and then I was gone or something? I'm talking to myself trying to figure out how I managed to not get these done. Or like I said, it might have been late in the stream and I was just tired and grumpy and impatient. Anyway, yes, I need to clean these off before I paint them, because there's going to just be a lot of dust on them. I almost really need to use the file on this. Yeah, this piece is like really very badly molded. It's not the worst that I've seen. Pretty close to it, though. I don't want to take too much off because these things are fragile enough as they are, but I also don't want them to be obviously just misshapen pieces of plastic. Anyway, yeah, I wasn't quite sure how I would fill the time today, but whoever manufactured these pieces, and that's just getting too thin. I can't do much better than this. The two halves. Sometimes there's just a seam or something, plastic oozed out between the parts of the mold. But sometimes the two halves of the mold are just misaligned. Okay, they don't line up, and that's what's happening here. Is that the two sides of the mold just didn't line up, and so one side is higher than the other side. And in order to sand it down so that they're even, the whole thing becomes way too thin. And I just am going to stop there. Just doing this and trying to get it to look like, oh, it's pretty good. Just the amount of time it takes to get the parts to not, like here, I was just filing off. It was a blob, a tiny little blob of extra plastic right there in a place where it would be pretty obvious. If someone were to do an A or A plus quality model with this, I have no doubt that they would be spending as much or even more time than I am trying to get these parts so that they were sort of decent. They'd be sanding and filing, and they'd have some sort of plastic filler. I'm not sure what they would use. Something that would harden nicely so it could be sanded. And like the strut, they would just reshape the whole thing. And that's why they would charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for their model. It was done because of just the amount of effort that was put into it to make it look more than pretty good. To make it look like, oh, that's awesome. That looks better than the real thing. That's why this particular level of modeling is, you can do this in your basement. And it'll end up looking pretty good. And that would be a literal truth, because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing this in my basement, and when it's done, I'm hoping it will look pretty good. Stop saying that. I've said it enough. But that's the intent here. So this took longer than I thought it would, because they just were not done very well the first time around. Either because I was tired, or I forgot to do it, or for whatever excuse. I've got these long, thin ones. These I worked on Wednesday, so I'm hoping that they don't need too terribly much effort to become usable. There was one of these that was just impossible. Can't say it's impossible, because I did the best I could, but it was really, really badly formed. Huge amounts of flashing everywhere, misalignments. Just not good. Well, just from test fitting this, I can tell that, they kind of hold together, but that this is going to be one of those things where if you just demonstrate how the landing gear folds out and then folds back, that there's going to be like a 80% chance that it will just come apart. And then, just have to be put back together, which is going to be okay. It's not going to be cemented. So the parts can go back together. They were before the demonstration, but it's not going to be the kind of thing one is going to want to be demonstrating to everybody who walks in, who walks by and says, show me how those landing gear fold and unfold. And it's like, well, what I'll do is I'll show you how they fall apart and how I can put them back together again. Yes, these are the kind of pieces. These are the kind of pieces where there's almost certainly an aftermarket, where each of these pieces is done in some sort of metal. Okay, and it probably costs like 3 or 4 times more than the entire model did to begin with. But if one really wanted it to look good and work, go to the aftermarket and find all of these pieces would be done in some sort of metal, and the tolerances would be way tighter, and then you'd be able to fold and unfold the landing struts without them falling apart. It's just like for a lot of models, you can get metal landing gear struts. Okay, because the plastic ones are like this. They're not terribly well molded, and they don't necessarily support the weight of the model very well. So, yeah, I probably could have saved myself a whole lot of time if I went online and tried to find that. Because I'm sure that, I don't know if enough of these were made to begin with or purchased to justify that kind of aftermarket kind of thing. But it's just striking me that these are the kind of pieces that cry out for the more detailed, more robust alternative. Now, these are the pads. Eventually, this goes in here like that. That's what lands on the moon. Ooh, like that, after it folds out. After it's not folded in anymore, if it folds out. So these two were gilded, okay, top and bottom. These required attention because they were attached to the sprue or the tree on the edges, and there were just rough spots. And on one of them, there was a blob of plastic on the inside right there. There's still some remnants of it. When it came off the mold, it was just this, it was a blob, just a blob right here in a very difficult to reach kind of area that is still visible. I grinded away at it with the file, leaving really nice deep gouges, and then have rubbed it with the sandpaper since. Just another example of the, yeah. All right, so there are the pieces that are supposed to go together. And none of this is cemented except the very bottoms of these little things that get cemented to they hook on here and they get cemented down here, and they're supposed to be oriented in such a way that everything else hooks together, or pins go into slots, or hooks go onto something else. And I don't know. Isn't a problem. These, I don't know. I don't know how much I should mess around with these, because every time I move them or do something with them, there's a chance that it would break. But I probably should at least check that the pins fit in the holes, right? What? No. Okay. Yet more. Maybe this is the one that just, if I keep at it, it's just going to disappear. It'll just get way too thin. But there's, yeah. Okay, well, I am going to do that. I'm going to do some test fitting here. And it comes down to I need to, like here, okay, it doesn't fit. So does that mean it'll fit in one of the other ones? Kind of. What's happening here is this pin is too big. Because unless I match these all up now, everything has to be kind of universal fit. Each one should fit in. Am I going to do that? Am I going to sit around and test fit each prong in each hole? Maybe I will. Let's just make sure it fits in one, right? Because after these things are, it's going to be even more. After these things are painted, yeah, the like the diameters of everything are going to be larger. It almost makes sense. Okay, I talked about this before. If I put these together before I paint it, there's the possibility that the paint will like harden on it, right? Dry on it and keep it from, as it's doing here, fitting in and rotating. See how that actually works. On the other hand, if I prime and paint them, there's not just the possibility, but the certainty that there will be paint on these prongs and that they won't fit unless I sand or file the paint off. So do I like paint this now and then hope that I can break any seals? Or do I paint it all and then do a little scraping and touching up later? That is a question, isn't it? Can I even hold on to anything? Okay, I'm going to, and I don't know if this is the right decision. I won't know until the time comes, right? I'm going to paint them and then, if necessary, very carefully clean the paint off of these little pins as necessary to fit, because everything's going to have to be bespoke fit anyway. Okay. Like I might have to open up a hole like this one where it's got some plastic in it. I might have to clear some plastic out of a hole. After it's painted, there'll be paint in the hole. But I think that the risk of painting this while it's assembled and then having it be that I try to turn the part and it just basically breaks because the paint is adhering to it. I think it's less risky. At least these fit pretty well so far. Great sticking. I think it's less risky to remove paint later than it is to take the chance that the paint is basically going to cement these parts together. I mean, clearing out a hole is not that hard. Scraping off a little paint from one of these prongs isn't that hard. I need to look at the instructions, though. It was pretty clear that those pins fit in those little holes in the yoke, right? These little things. Okay, these are supposed to go on here. These go on here like this. These are these are not going to work. Okay, that's just going to be a whole. Yeah, after these things are painted, just the whole assembly is just going to be extremely delicate. I'm going to find, that like these are supposed to go into here somehow. Okay, and there's no flex. I mean, that gap doesn't open. So I'm not sure why they even bothered, but yeah, every single one of these is just going to be a assembly challenge. And what I may end up having to do is like taking this little file or even, something similar to it and opening the gap, and then I'm almost certain going to have to do some, like if I do that, it's going to rub against the inside. Even if I use sandpaper like this, and then I'll have to do some touch up. Maybe after it's assembled, just put little daubs of gold paint on here and there. But getting those into here, this is going to be a thing. And it'll largely involve snapping these things off. But I wanted to test that to see how that went. Okay. And where do these go? Oh, those are the ones that go into the holes on the very bottom. Okay, I'm not that concerned about those. They go here like this. Okay, and that's not too bad. Okay, so this will be the easiest assembly. Okay, putting these pins in these holes will be the next easiest assembly. I mean, like here you can just see that this doesn't fit. It's not going in all the way. So great. And then getting this into these is going to be the most difficult, and I'm going to be in the process of doing that. Scraping off paint is just going to happen. These are the ones that, if I were to assemble something before painting, it would be here. But even then, there's the likelihood that you put a layer of primer on and a layer of paint on, that is just going to cement it shut. And so I think I am better off messing around with these later. Once this goes in, it's not going to come back out again without endangering the whole thing. So if I need to put tiny, tiny little dots of gold paint on to do some touching up later, that I'll just do that. I'll probably end up like wearing gloves so I don't get my fingers pulling paint off. Putting this together. Yeah, there we go. So how does this ladder go? You might as well test fit this too. This probably, this should be straightforward. Yeah, that goes on there pretty well. Okay, so that won't be a huge issue. There's a few parts that like this where it's painted surface against painted surface, but that won't be too hard. Okay, well, now I've got all these little bits that are very fragile that are going to have to stick together that I don't want to break later on, and we'll see how that goes, right? Right. Yeah, thanks for listening to me mutter to myself about these pieces fitting. I'm almost tempted to go over these pieces all a third time, but that might just be too excessively boring. I think they're cleaned up pretty well. I think I got them, for the most part, to where they need to be for assembly, except for these holes. I'm just going to do a little bit of work on these because some of the holes were plugged up with, as you saw, little bits of plastic, and I was realizing that doing this later, after it's been primed and painted, would not, it would create an unnecessary mess. So I am going to just poke the stuff out of there and brush it off. That won't take terribly long, but it will prove its value later. So these little bits of plastic will poke out, and then they'll just show as they'll have to be scraped off and then more touch up. So this is doing a little bit of prevention here. So that's another thing when you building this in your basement on a budget and you're just trying to get it to be pretty good, is what I just discovered here, which is that when the excess plastic is pushed through, it'll be messy, and it's better to get rid of it now. It would be a lot more exciting later. It could become an oops level kind of event. Might still be an oops, could still end up being that, something to look forward to, but keep it from being an oops. Just soon do that. Okay, what needs to be done yet is just some more modeling stuff, because as I said, these things are really light, and spraying them with anything, spray can, an airbrush, whatever, they'll just get blown away. Even something like this, they'll just be whoosh, blown away. And so I'm going to take little bits of two-sided tape, on a piece of cardboard, and stick them down. Just like this is going to be a little hard because there's no good sticking spot, but they'll be adhered to the cardboard a little bit, and that way they won't blow away and get covered in dirt from the floor of wherever I'm painting them, and I won't lose them probably, which would be good. Not losing them would be good. But they all need to be primed. This is big. This will just stay. And I need to be sure to not get impatient when I'm doing that, because they need to be done on both sides. And if I don't wait for the paint to dry thoroughly and I flip them over and stick them down, then it'll peel the paint off and mar the surface. But first, I promised some painting. And I am going to paint. This is the rocket nozzle. And I knew would happen. I held that with the alligator clip when I painted the inside, and there is a little spot of white where the clip was. And I'm going to paint that flat black. So this is it. I hope everybody's really paying attention here, because this is going to be the relaxing painting part of the relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. It's such a tiny little spot. I'm going to see if I can avoid, there's enough paint here on the tip of the bottle. Okay. Paint there that I don't even have to squeeze any out. Ready? This is it. Yeah, I can't be anywhere near paint. Okay. Not anywhere near paint without it jumping up and getting on me somehow. I'm just mushing it around here to keep it from showing brush marks. You can see it's glossy compared to the rest of it, but that'll dry and it levels pretty nicely. Okay, that was it. Ta-da. Okay, I didn't squeeze any paint out, right? But now there's just... Okay, yeah. I mean, this is so... One tiny little drop of paint that I didn't even squeeze out to touch one little piece on the end of that, and now I've got... See what I mean? Look at that. Okay, it's all over me. It's just everywhere. I'm just baffled. It's like this. Okay, now you get to watch not terribly relaxing, trying to get paint off of my hands with Dyson Dungeons. So, if people say, why don't you just use an airbrush? It's so easy, right? I use it all the time. See what happened? This is a squeeze bottle, right? A squeeze bottle. You don't even open the cap and dip paint out of it. And it's got a little nozzle on it. And I didn't even squeeze it out. I was just taking a little paint off the top of the nozzle, and it dripped down the side, and my effort to wipe it off led to that. So if you can imagine, okay, just use your imagination and think of, I am trying to get paint into a little airbrush cup, right? And then spray it around. No, I mean, when I've used it in the past, just, yeah, this much of a mess, taking one drop of paint off the top of a squeeze bottle and then recapping it. It's relaxing getting paint everywhere with Dice and Dungeons, and it just happens like all the time. I was painting minifigs once, and I got, somehow or other, the paint jumped 2.5 inches from where it was onto my finger, and I didn't notice. And then I touched the model and got a fingerprint on a part that I had painted earlier that required a whole lot of cleaning up and touching up. Well, that was exciting. That was like, if I had not noticed it and touched something else, it would have been a major oops. As it was just a minor, I can't believe I made that mess kind of oops, at least so far. I can paint like an entire room, not a D&D room, a real room in a real house, and get less paint on my hands than I did putting black paint on that tiny little spot. Sometimes I paint an entire room and then find that my elbow, why? I mean, for somehow or other, my elbow is covered in paint. And, when you're painting, you don't usually stick your elbow into the wall or anything. So I had no idea how that could happen, but yeah. Painting and me. Okay. What is going to happen after the break? Because I'm going to, every time I look at these things, I see another problem or flaw. I could keep at this for like another hour of just doing little touch-ups on these bits. I should really have, well, I do. I mean, in a sense, in that earlier in the stream or previous stream, you could see before pictures of some of these and how flashing was sticking out all over the place and the two sides of the pieces didn't line up. Yeah, but it's sort of hard to remember then how badly these things were formed and how, that in fact there has been an improvement. What is I haven't even been using that color of paint. I don't know I have no idea what those are. Why? Apparently paint has managed to jump out of a sealed bottle over here, like a 1.5 feet away from me, onto the palm of my hand. Put my glasses on and see what time it really is. It's 22. Okay, well, let me do a preview of what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next? No. I'm going to throw this away because otherwise it will just be another oops. What's going to happen next is that I'm going to wash these guys with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and stick them onto little pieces of two-sided tape on a piece of cardboard. Oh, I know what I can do. Here's cardboard. Look at that. I'm going to use the side with writing on it. Okay, because then later I can flip it over, and when it comes time to replace my highly sophisticated, expensive tabletop work surface here, I can, because this side is going to be like all spray painted with primer and gold paint and stuff, right? When I'm done with it, since I'm frugal, this is making pretty good models on a budget. I'll be able to flip it over and have a really nice clean work surface. So this is way bigger than I need because, I can put these parts pretty much like close like this and just make sure I, have some separation so the paint can get on them, but they don't need to be much further apart than this. And, the closer together they are, the less likely I am to waste a lot of painting cardboard instead of the parts. So yeah, I'm not going to be using all of this, but the center, I'm going to stick them on and they'll be kind of arranged kind of like this. And then this will just go on there. And then I'll paint the bottom. This is the bottom. This is the only part I have to worry about, and then flip it over and paint the top and make sure that I get all of the bits. I might use a different piece of cardboard for that one. I don't know. Yeah, so you get to watch me cut little pieces of double-sided tape and stick these on. Looking at this one, this is where that blob was. They talked about the blob. That's still there, despite my efforts to abrade it away. I need to wash these, and then they need to dry, and then I need to pick them up. I think what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to just do that because I don't want to get, once I wash them off, I don't want to get fingerprints all over them again. Here, I'm going to do this. Put this nozzle in the done parts box next to the astronauts. I am actually just going to, I'm going to wash them off now before break. And then maybe the break will start a little later. I'm not sure. The main thing I'm doing here, okay, really, I've read about this, okay, really good master modelers wash all of their parts off before they paint them. Oh, what's up? Okay, that's okay. To make sure that there aren't any finger oils on them, I'm going to simulate. I'm going to simulate doing it the right way. Okay, I'm actually going to put a glove on so that I can. I'm assuming the isopropyl won't dissolve the glove or something, so I can hold the part, wash it off. And part of a really good master modeler would be doing this to make sure there wasn't any finger oils, because that would affect the adherence of the paint. In this case, the real reason I'm doing this is that because I was sanding all of these things, there's just sanding dust on them. So here I am. I'm doing a good example. I'm showing you a good example of what somebody who does like A-level modeling would do. They probably do this better than I'm doing it. But yeah, they'd be washing it down, make sure there weren't any finger oils on it, and getting rid of any dust. And I'm just putting them on. This is the piece of cardboard on which they are going to be adhered with tape later on. That'll be fun, because I'm going to use a glove again, because like why get all the fingerprints off of them and then end up just getting more fingerprints on them? Why do that? But that'll be fun to do. It'll be fun to do because the tape sticks to the glove. So it'll be like, oh, I'm doing this the right way by not getting finger oils all over these again just before they're painted. Sometimes in the process find stuff that should have been taken care of earlier. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a glove on again when I stick these onto the double-sided tape, so that everybody can be amused by the fact that the glove sticks to the tape, and the whole thing just becomes an oops. I'm going to orchestrate the probability of an oops event after break. You get to watch the whole process of prepping these for painting, which I will be doing this weekend. Yep. So when you come back on Monday at more or less 10 Eastern Daylight Time, all these little bits will not be on the cardboard. They'll be sitting in a box, and they will be gold. Yep, they'll be gold. And then that'll be exciting. Definitely come back next week, because not only will these be gold, okay, which will be kind of cool, but I'll be doing painting. Okay. This and the ladder are going to be painted dark, either aluminium or dark aluminium. Okay. They'll be painted kind of I'm not going to use steel, but I'll use a darker color. And I'm just going to hand paint those. I don't have the right color aerosol paint. So I'm just going to paint those so you get to watch those get painted. They'll be painting, yes. Okay, so that'll be fun. And then I'll be painting the parts of the body of the descent stage where the rocket nozzle fits in. Okay, I'll be painting that really dark aluminium, as well as the top of it where the ascent stage sets. Okay, because the parts where the exhaust, rocket exhaust, is going on, shouldn't really be gilded. So that'll be a little bit of, some contrast color, which will be kind of cool. And so the ladder and the platform will get painted, and the rocket exhaust parts on the top and the bottom will get painted. And then before I put these landing gear pieces together, which will be kind of challenging in its own right, as you saw, they don't all fit that well. And after they're painted, there will be paint buildup on them, so they'll fit even more poorly. There'll be some really delicate filing and sanding away of excess paint. I could, in some ways, I could put something on the inside of the little holes and the outside of these little tabs so that they didn't get painted and they'd fit together better. But I'm, that would be extreme. And then they might fit okay, Sure. So all these parts here, I'm going to move them over to the edge. And then after break, I'm going to be putting pieces of two-sided tape down and taping them down, because I might as well do that on stream. It has to be done in order to move forward. So might as well share that experience with everybody. And then they'll be ready for painting. Yeah, so I'm going to get those ready for painting, for priming and painting. And then on Monday, like I said, I'll be painting the ladder and the platform. I'll be painting the areas where the rocket nozzles for the top and the bottom of the body are. But the other thing that needs to be done is that once this is all painted, the body of this, the outside of it, needs to be wrapped in gold foil mylar. Let me just set this up here. Second. And the kit actually came with that. Okay. But it actually came with it. And it's all crinkly, but that's okay, because on the real thing, it's all crinkly like this. So somehow I'm going to need to very, very accurately cut strips of this and apply it to the outside of this. At least there's a fair amount of this, and I think that I'm just going to use contacts in that, because that allows me to put it on and position it a little bit, and most importantly, wrap it around these discontinuities. Oh, I should wash this too. This has got sanding dust all over it. So this is the part on the top where the sense stage sets and the rocket nozzle sets on here. So this thing will be painted a metallic silvery color. Couldn't fill that gap in. And on the bottom, the rocket nozzle goes in here, so this circular part will be painted that metallic silver. And this will all be gold and then wrapped in that gold mylar. And then these holes where the only part that's cemented out of this whole thing, okay, this goes in here like this, and those get cemented in. Okay, those holes will actually be under the mylar. I decided to put the mylar on first to put little pinholes in where these go, and then have the mylar extend right down to the very bottom. Because you can see these are up a little higher, have the mylar extend down to the very bottom here of the it will go as much as possible right up to the top of this, maybe even, if I'm very good at it, maybe even back like around and underneath these struts. So it will be tempting to have like a really long piece of mylar and just wrap it around seamlessly. But I'm not sure that that's going to work very well. Like this is going to require probably cutting out different pieces, or maybe cutting around it. I'm not sure. This is where the ladder is. So this is the front. So I might just kind of wrap it around like that and then do another one on the back. Because wherever I put it, put it down here. I don't think, it's not long enough. What I'm doing, I'm looking at if we're like here and I wrapped it around, it's not long enough to go all the way around. It goes about halfway. So I think I'll try to do that. I'll do like this half and then the other half. And I have to figure out what to do with this thing. Maybe I'll look at the box top and see how they handled that. See if there's any hints there at all that might be helpful. Okay, well, I'm going to go on break here. It's time to do that. I'll be back in about half an hour, more or less, and then get these settled down so that they can be painted and chat about something. I don't know while I'm doing it. There isn't, I can say, well, look, I'm cutting a piece of two-sided tape. Look, I'm cutting a piece of two-sided tape. Now I'm cutting it smaller. Now I'm sticking it on. I could do that, but I'll try to think of something a little bit more interesting while I do that. In the meantime, though, I will let this precariously sit here, hoping that it doesn't get knocked and all those pieces don't go flying. This was a bad idea. It just was. Yeah, after break, I'll take care of it. Nothing should happen while I'm gone. Except when I reach over to push the brake button. Hi. Thank you. Thanks so much. And thanks for joining in on chat. Yeah, you caught me just as I am going on break. So sorry about the timing, but I'll be back in about a half hour and be getting this ready to be painted so that on Monday I can start actually making this look like it is something. So I'll be back in about a half an hour, and thanks for joining in. I'm back from break, and well, let's see. I've learned a couple of things. One is that I should plan ahead a little bit better than I did. Okay, because I got all these little parts here on this piece of cardboard that I'm going to be using to hold the pieces while they get painted. And I've got this propped up on top of the box, and everything else is covered with stuff. And yeah, so basically what I have here is a mess. It's not unusual to have a mess on this stream. Part of the don't do it this way kind of thing. So what I'm doing is moving a whole lot of stuff out of the way. You can keep that. You know, little toothpicks and little pieces of balsa wood and other stuff that because I want to be able to lay this piece of cardboard down flat on the cardboard underneath it rather than having it teetering on the brink of down. Let's see if I can set this down. Okay, yeah. So in this box, I've got the sitting down astronauts that I painted a while ago. And I've got the standing on the moon astronaut that came out actually pretty well, including the moon dust on its legs. We need to put a little bit more of that on, I think. Walking on the moon guy got pretty dirty, you know, so that's kind of okay there on the legs, but the back isn't, well, anyway, maybe mess with that later. And then there's the rocket nozzle with a descent stage. And those are done. And put them somewhere over there, way up over there, where it's out of the way. Okay. So I discovered a couple of things by looking at the box top and the painting directions. And one is that yes, indeed, this is supposed to be painted like a silvery color and not the gold. So I know I'll definitely do that on the inside. I'm not sure about the rest of it because these lines are difficult to work with. So there's that. And then the other is that the entire top, not just the square, but the entire top was, it looks like it was painted the same color as the ascent stage of the lunar module. And I'm going to have to decide what to do about that. Like I could just paint this square, which is where the rocket nozzle fits when the ascent stage sets on here, and leave the rest of it gold. Or it isn't going to be all that hard to do, okay, is to mask around it, okay, after it's painted gold. Take a look at how it looks. I might even like test assemble them just to see how it looks. I might want to just leave it gold. It might look better that way. And if it doesn't, then I can mask around it, you know, put masking tape all the way around it and mask it and spray the top of it to match the ascent stage. So I'll either try to do what the instructions say to do, or maybe just do part of it, just because. I also checked, and the Mylar gets wrapped all the way around it, and this bit here, this protrusion, it's actually cut out around the protrusion. Okay, so that was good to know. because wrapping that in the Mylar would have been hard. But the way it looks on the box top is that this is very smooth and the Mylar is all crinkly. So this would be this would just be trimmed when I put the Mylar on. So there's that. Anyway, I managed to mess up, didn't I? Yeah, I had carefully washed this whole thing and wore a glove and everything so that I didn't get fingerprints on it. And then I just manipulated it all over the place. So I'll give it a washing before I paint it. But that isn't going to be on here. All these little bits are going to be on here. So yeah, rather than touching them like that, I'm going to do the right thing. This is what an A-level modeler would do: would put a glove on so that don't get finger oils all over the parts that are going to be painted. So I'm gonna do that just to do it here. Let's see how it goes. This is the two-sided tape, and let's see. Let me see if I can keep this on screen mostly. So I don't need really big pieces, right? I don't need really huge pieces of this stuff to hold these. In fact, some of it I can maybe get like 3 pieces out of here, or even 4. And it should be enough to hold it. So I'm gonna cut this in half. I'm gonna be frugal with my two-sided tape. There's a spot. That would be maybe I'll put one of these on it, like that, and then I'll do another one, do another one here, maybe. Put that on it like that. There. I will be taking the tops, the cover off, just positioning them right now. So there's some taping things. Tape next. Put some more parts down. Let's stick these on. Yeah. Needs to be a little bit lower here, though. Probably could be closer together, but they're not now. So there. These will hold them down this way, and I hope I might have to replace the tape when I flip them over. Like, there's not very much contact point, so it very well may be that once I flip them over, that there isn't any sticky, because it'll be covered with tape, right? So anyway, that's why I've got more tape in case I need to create, create more sticky stuff. I'll do these long bits here. These can be pretty close together. try that. Let me say that was ill-placed. This was ill-placed, so I'll pull it up and I'll move it down there. There I go. There you go. Very neat and orderly, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. So did you notice how I move those around with my non-gloved hand, thereby defeating the whole point of having a glove on? Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of really outstanding stuff that can happen here on Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons is, oh, let's do it this way so that, and then immediately then violate what I'm attempting to do by messing it up. So let's see, these Y-shaped things probably need to be like that, and then the adhesive probably up there at the junction. After I'm done sticking these pieces of tape on, I'm going to then get a pin and peel away the cover, the top, the thing that's covering the other side of the tape. Mm-hmm. And about half the time I grab it with the wrong hand, again, thereby totally defeating the whole point of having put a glove on to begin with. But you all got to see that I have gloves like that, and I know how to put them on. And then I mess up with what I'm doing. Yeah, these little circle things. I'm back. Yay. Yeah. So I'm doing this, and I'm hoping that after I paint these things, that there'll be enough sticky contact surface left to adhere them after I turn them over, so I don't have to do this all over again. If I do have to do it all over again, I'll be doing it off camera over the weekend, so you won't get to enjoy watching me mess around with two-sided tape. Done. But like I said when I started this is something I have to do anyway. And why not do it right here on the stream? So you all get to watch the tedious kind of stuff that needs to be done to make this work. There, I did it again. This, I don't know. I know it needs to be primed on the top. I might. They want to paint it on the bottom. I don't know. I guess I can stick it like a fairly big piece of tape there. And stick it down just on the railings, I guess, to prime the bottom of it. And then turn it over. Hopefully that'll work. One way to find out, and that's finding out. Oh, this is, yeah. So it's got these little prongs that hold it up. And, to stick it down the middle risks breaking it. So I'm just going to do it this way. All right. So there's a bunch of tape and the pieces are placed and they'll be sprayed. But now get to do this tedious stuff. Everything has been tedious, hasn't it? Is to peel the covering off and actually stick them back down. So the process is going to be spray them all, primer, flip them over. Maybe they'll stick, maybe they won't. Maybe I'll have to put more tape down, maybe I won't. Prime the other side, and when that's dry, paint them all gold, except these two guys. I'm not going to paint them gold. I'm just, after these are primed, I'll take them off because they're going to get painted a different color. And then, so prime them, including these, flip them over, prime them again, take these away because they get painted a different color, paint it all gold, flip them a second time, and paint the other side gold. And then they'll look gold. They'll look golden. And then the base, this part here, gets primed top and bottom. Just looking at this, I don't have to worry about the light colored paint getting in on this side because it's black on that side, the downside. So, primed, and then all this thing is painted gold. And then I'll be painting the inside of the circle here, a dark aluminium, not quite steel, but pretty dark. And then at least this part, and then decide whether or not I want to paint the whole surface the same color as the ascent stage of the LEM or not. Do that later. So let's see. Let's just let me start here. Doesn't much matter what order I go in. I'll be knocking stuff over regardless anyway. There. See, doesn't move. Yay. And what I'm doing is I'm using a pin to lift up this cover sheet. Okay, let's talk about 60s TV. There's some cool, stuff that went on then. One of the shows I talked about this before is that there were some shows that were built around a thing or entity that was always had to come into play during the show. Sometimes it was a thing like the Whirlybirds. There always had to be something that required the use of a helicopter. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point in having the Whirlybirds, right? They were like helicopter-based private investigators, kind of. And then, when you watch Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges, there was always something that required going underwater, either with some scuba apparatus or with a rebreather. Sometimes they had this battery-operated little submarine kind of thing with a propeller in it that they held out in front of them, and it pulled him along at a kind of fast pace, right? Assisted scubaing, assisted movement, and then there was Flipper. It wasn't a thing; it was an intelligent entity, but there always had to be something that involved required the services of a dolphin. Just because that's how the TV show worked, and that must have been, kind of a challenge for the writers, really, to keep coming up with things. I mean, you can come up with things, right? But why do you have to have a dolphin? Okay, why a dolphin? Why a helicopter? Why Kit, the talking car? This one's a little bit, okay, what's happened? Oh, okay, that's what's going on. Is it's got these brackets up in here for the ladder, and that keeps it from laying flat. So it just isn't going to lay flat. So I'm just going to adhere it on one of the brackets there. Probably should put a little bit of tape down here for the other bracket. Okay. This is just, this one isn't working. Let's try something different here. Go to, I'm going to try to be frugal and reuse it. Let's see if that even works, if that's something that can be done. It's pennies worth of tape involved here. Saving like fractions of a cent, right, by attempting to do this. It's just really silly, but try. See, I saved that much tape by attaching it here and here to the brackets. Lesson in my father's growing up as a kid, and your parents had gone through the Depression and nobody had anything. So don't let anything go to waste, including a tiny little bit of two-sided tape. So yeah, I talked about those kind of TV shows, and that was pretty good. But then I've also, I've talked about adult cartoons, how replicated the Honeymooners by doing the Flintstones. The Honeymoons were better than the Flintstones. For some reason, do a compare and contrast between the Flintstones and the Jetsons. It's like, how far can I go on this? This is the one where the two parts didn't line up. and there's still a real obvious ridge along here. But if I were to get rid of that, this whole part would be significantly smaller. It's bad enough though that I need to I need to work on that a little bit more. I'm going to keep that aside. It's going to end up going there, but that's really not ready for painting yet. There's not much of an adhesion point there, but I hope it's enough to hold it still. I very carefully spray paint it at a distance, right? Be careful with this. I want it to adhere, but I don't want to break the railings off. Yeah, I didn't so far. I'm glad I'm sticking them on here because I have to carry this up to a well-ventilated space, which where I am is not, before I start spraying paint on it. Hoping that by having these on the tape, if I carry it very carefully and horizontally, that I won't lose any pieces between here and there. I will find that out when I do it. Just by tilting it a little bit. They're not falling off. Exactly. They're not exactly glued on, but hopefully there's enough adhesion there that I can, spray the paint and have them fly away. Okay, this one just is a horrible mess. So get dust all over these because I went out of my way to clean them, right? Just the cover sheet and carefully drop them in a pile there where the messiness of them isn't an issue. Okay. I need to work on this one a little bit. So I'm going to lift this up, set it up here on the box. Hopefully, to work on this even with a little file and paper, because it's just really bad. So for some reason, I don't know why, I guess because I wanted to do a compare and contrast, I actually went on YouTube or something and looked up an episode of the Flintstones and an episode of the Jetsons, because the question was, which of them was better? And what is better is a highly subjective thing. But one criteria, it was a simple one to begin with, which was, do I want to watch this all the way through, or do I want to just stop and say that I've had enough? Yeah. I have to say that both of them kind of provoked the reaction of, why am I watching this, really? Maybe the commercials would be better. They had very simplistic plots. Just... to do with you just listen to your wife kind of thing. That was a thing back then. There wasn't a real liberation thing going on, but it was always fun to make fun of guys who wouldn't listen, who always knew better. So for some reason they were housekeeper. Oh yeah. So Wilma was pregnant, and back then it's like, you shouldn't be doing anything. For some reason, after hundreds of thousands of years of history, it became important for physicians to say that a pregnant woman shouldn't participate in much activity. So they were going to hire a housekeeper to help Wilma with the housework, because Fred said, "Oh, I can do it," right? You know how that would go when you're looking at 1960s stuff. Is blew up the dishwasher, which was like a mastodon kind of thing. This was not historically accurate in terms of which kinds of creatures were living with what other kind of creatures, but so he couldn't do it, and it became obvious that they needed some sort of other help. And Wilma says, "Well, let's just call my mother." He goes, No, I don't want your mother over, because mother-in-laws. That was another trope. They couldn't break new ground, right? You had to just stay with the tropes. So mother-in-law couldn't come over. So they're hiring a housekeeper, and had to do that in a very stereotypic sort of way too. There was had a German accent, of course, set rules, and breakfast was now, and dinner was now, and this was cleaning, and that was cleaning, and you better pay attention kind of thing. So that didn't work out. Then there was the one who just took breaks all the time and didn't do any housekeeping. And then there was one that I'll just say a floozy, because that's the kind of representation you had back there in the 60s. And, cartoon, you always had to have the chest beating, thump, 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 and the eyes going, wooga, wooga, almost. They didn't do that, but that's the kind of thing that used to happen back then. She wasn't brought in as a test, so I guess Fred thought better before bringing her into the house. Anyway, so they all failed, and then he's stuck trying to find a housekeeper, and hires the ma of a bank robbing gang, and she brings the loot to the house, and the police come. And anyway, it was really stupid, because the mother-in-law shows up, starts to get things fixed up, but then ends up getting arrested instead of the woman who was the head of the gang. I don't know why the writers thought that would be funny. Anyway, it really wasn't. So it was kind of a doofus episode, and very stereotypic, and probably hilarious at the time in the 1960s, but now it would just be dumb, because you had mother-in-law stereotyping, you had different personalities of stereotypic female personalities, you had the trope of the guy just being inept at doing the simplest housework. and then somehow or other bank robbing. I don't know. Why not? But I was kind of impressed at the poor quality of the animation. I know these were all hand drawn back then, and the backgrounds were all hand painted. So, and they had to produce like 20 some minutes of it every week. So there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't a lot of detailed animation going on in the background. Like when he's running through the house, it's just this. There's a window and then and there's a door and then a window and a door, and that window is the same as the window before. So it was obviously just repeating the same background over and over. But it was a big hit at the time. Anyway, then the Jetsons episode, of course, was Jetson and his boss, Mr. Spacely, I guess, from Spacely Space Sprockets. They wanted to go to a robot football game because robots did everything then in the future. And their wives wanted to go somewhere else. And so, the whole thing about deception and subterfuge and getting caught and not getting caught and making excuses. Well, no, we can't go out to this thing because so-and-so is sick. And the wife goes, oh, no, he's sick. I got to come back and take care of him. Or Spacely's wife, I guess, went to the Jetsons' house to take care of George Jetson for, I don't know, a reason. But then, everybody gets caught. The subterfuge all just sort of breaks down. So that was another stereotypic sort of thing. So both of them were kind of disappointing. Not even compared to Memory, but just sort of like, well, this is very simple. But a lot of television like that, Dream Genie and Petticoat Junction and everything else were just based on simplistic stereotypes and made the jobs of the writers easier. I don't know. Anyway, the one thing I do remember about the difference between the two is that continuity was a lot better on the Flintstones. That is, when you came back one week after the other, there weren't just dramatic changes in like their car or their house or the Dino, spelled Dino but pronounced Dino, their dinosaur pet. But in the Jetsons, things just kept changing pretty dramatically. And maybe that was just because, in the Stone Age, that things didn't change that much. Right? They stayed kind of the same. Whereas in the Jetsons' future, you could just, redesign your entire house. Why not? Have a whole different set of kind of automation. Maybe that was it. Maybe I was being too harsh in my judgment about continuity, thinking that maybe it was just laziness on the part of the animators. So that's it. Get to talk about that while I was sticking things on little pieces of tape here. And I've got like a whole half hour yet. And there isn't much I can do here until these things get painted, which is what's going to happen over the weekend. And then on Monday, it'll be a really exciting day because I'll be doing some assembly and little painting of bits like ladders and this and that, like painting one side of the ladder or one end of it and holding it like with a clamp and then doing touch up, or painting the bottom of this and then turning it over and painting the top. It'll be, getting some painting, letting the paint dry, paint in the other direction. Finding out that none of these pieces are going to fit together very well. Painting the silvery metallic color here, and then deciding whether to leave well enough alone or whether to tape all of this off and spray paint the entire top. I don't know how that will turn out yet. Yeah, so things go okay with the priming and the painting this weekend. There will be, grumbling. I'm anticipating on Monday a lot of grumbling, trying to get these pieces to go together to fit when there's paint buildup and they don't fit in the holes. The points don't fit in the holes very well. So fine detail, like scraping away little bits of paint to get them to fit. That kind of thing. I know that's going to happen. Trying to get them to fit into these things here at the point, fitting into those hooks there without breaking the hook off, because that could happen. And if everything else goes okay, maybe even starting to wrap the gold foil mylar the outside of this, which I want to do before I start assembling all this kind of stuff. So Monday and Wednesday of next week could involve a lot of. It'll either be, wow, that really went well. That was a surprise. Not the most likely thing. Or it could be, oh, geez, none of these parts fit. When they do fit, they fall apart right away. There's still a huge flaw in this that I didn't catch, even though I went over it like 3 times. It's really hard to predict how that's going to go. But the aesthetic decision that will need to make on Monday is whether to paint the entire whole top of this the same color as the Ascent module, or whether I will just paint the square in the middle where the rocket nozzle of the Ascent stage sits. And right now I'm of the mind that it would probably actually look better if it were gold and then just the square part was painted silver. Even though it's not the way it looks on the box top or the way the painting instructions suggest doing it. Sort of theoretically, the whole bottom of this is also supposed to be painted that color. And, I guess I could do that. I can mask this off pretty carefully and spray paint it. Again, I'm thinking, that it might end up just looking better if the whole thing were painted gold and I just did the circle here and the square here. So I'm pretty sure on the bottom, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let just the whole thing just spray painted gold like it was gilded. Okay. And then just do the circle part on the top. I'm still not sure. I may end up before I make that decision, which I need to make right away, because if I'm going to paint this entire top, then the whole assembly thing is thrown off by an entire stream, basically, while I tape it off and spray paint it and let it sit until Wednesday. It might be another reason to just go ahead and let it be gold, except for the small part that I'd be hand painting, brushing it. I suppose one thing I could do, well, maybe I'll just do that. I said I was going to show off the parts that were already done. Why don't I do that? I'm going to set this up here. Hopefully in a way that won't lose the pieces. I'm going to go off screen and hopefully very carefully bring over the parts that are finished. Okay. I'm going to go do that now. Putting that in boxes. so that they don't get all dusty. Except for this, which is the one thing that's most likely to collect dust, but I don't have a way to cover it. This is the escape rocket. This goes on the top. This goes on the top of the very, very top of the whole thing. And if the command module needs to be removed from a malfunctioning launch vehicle, this thing here, these rockets here, tip it over. Those rockets, the solid fuel rocket that's inside this cylinder shoots out through those 4 nozzles and lifts the whole thing away, and then it comes down in through the parachute. And if it isn't necessary, and it never was, what happens is that there's another rocket inside the rocket, and up here at the top there where the doors are open. Okay, and you can see those nozzles on either side, the little black ovals. Then if this rocket motor with those 4 nozzles isn't needed to take the command module off of the malfunctioning launch vehicle, then these fire, those ovals, and it takes the tower away from the command module, and then it falls into the ocean and pollutes it. But yeah, so this is done, and it came out okay. This was kind of a pain to assemble, as you might begin to imagine. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. It came out okay. And I need to cover it up somehow so it doesn't get dusty, but it's also pretty fragile. The next thing that was finished was the service module. The service module is best known as the part that blew up for Apollo 13. Yeah, I taped the box top, and now I have to put there. Now the tape is off. Yeah, the service module is the part that blew up for Apollo 13, and here it is. It's in 2 parts because this is the rocket engine nozzle, which is really pretty significantly huge, right? Because this service module had to do a lot of work. When you got to the moon, that rocket had to fire to slow it down and put it in orbit, and then it had to fire again to take it out of orbit, and then it had to fire again to slow the whole thing down so that it could re-enter the atmosphere. And this attaches to the bottom here like this, but I keep it like that. Okay, I'm not sure which camera to show it on. Show it here. Okay, but I keep it separate so that I can keep it in the box like that. But this is the top. There's nice detail there. I managed to get that in with all the conduits and brackets and everything. So that was kind of fun. And then the reaction control jets, the attitude control jets that, they're not aligned perfectly, but they don't look too bad. And then this particular thing opens up. It came out pretty decent. This opens here to reveal some of the interior detail. And the things on the top are fuel cells, and then hydrogen tanks, and then an oxygen tank on the bottom. And when Apollo 13 got into trouble, it was this tank on the bottom here that blew up. Yeah. In this case, it hasn't blown up, so it's okay. This is Apollo 11. So there's the detail there, and there's the gold color. Over there, I talked about the detail that I messed up. Those little radiator lines and dials and things I tried to touch up with a felt tip pen to, red and black ink on them, and that's what I messed up, and the inside of the section had to be redone. So there's the service module. It's close up again, and it's not, and I'm just not going to force the issue. Progress. I'm going to set this back where it was. Every time something moves, there's an opportunity to have it break. And then this was the last thing that was done. And this is the ascent stage. The LEM. This is the part that most people think of as the LEM, the bug-eyed kind of thing. It's more of those wonderful attitude control jets all over the place. The challenging part of this were the windows. Those are pieces of thin plastic that had to be cut to shape, attached from the inside, carefully masked. As you can see, they stayed in place. Yay. And there's an astronaut inside. You can see the astronaut peeking through the window there. Not located in an authentic location. Okay. When an astronaut was flying this, they stood directly behind the window, but the inside of this is so convoluted that it couldn't stand there. So there it is. So this actually came out okay. I think the metallic paint looks okay on it. The antenna are there. Most of the seams are fairly invisible. I mean, there's still obviously seams along the outsides. I couldn't get them perfectly covered. And then this ends up sitting. There's little tabs on the bottom that go in here. It sits on like this. To go in the holes and then rotate just a little bit to hold it in place, but it doesn't. They don't line up. Great. I hadn't tried this before, and they don't. If one goes in, the other pops out. We need to mess around with that some other time without breaking it. Well, part of it is that it's oriented the wrong way. Maybe that makes a difference. It's supposed to go on like this. Yeah, okay. Because the hatch that opens up is here in the front. That's supposed to be the hatch that opens up onto the platform and the ladder. So the question I was thinking, asking earlier was whether this whole thing, whether the top of this should be painted the same color as the ascent module, or whether I should just leave it gold. And, looking at this now, since it covers up so much of it, I think I'm just going to leave it gold. It will just look better that way. So this thing, I'm I just don't want to manipulate it because things will just end up breaking. It's supposed to rotate more so that it's actually lined up correctly, but okay. Since I'm playing with this and it's not working, I'm going to do some things. I'm going to do a thing. It's supposed to, the pins go in here. Okay. That's not a problem, but they're not rotating all the way so that the front of it lines up. And I'm going to mess with it now by making this wider to see if I can't get it to work. I mean, why not? I've got like 20 minutes yet, so I can play with something and maybe break something. I'll have to clean this again. But I never test fit this. So now that I test fit it for the first time and found out that it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, why not play around with it? I'm going to have to clean it again because I'm touching it with my ungloved hand. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's being hung up on. Deeper than this one. Maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. Yeah, this gives me something to play with. I can keep picking this up over and over again with all these little fragile bits attached to it so that I can increase the possibility, maybe even the likelihood of breaking some of them off. Definitely not. It's definitely not rotating in those little slots the way it's meant to. Okay, I'll just keep screwing around with it here. One thing I'm almost certainly doing is I very carefully painted the inside of this thing black. I mentioned that earlier. And I'm almost certainly getting, all this plastic dust is getting on the inside, probably making a mess. Yeah, no, this isn't all. It's still not rotating. There. Okay. So now it is. So now it lines up on the front, and it's still attached. Okay. So whatever it was, by just grinding away at it, eventually it got fixed. So you can see, it didn't turn out perfect. There's like little Mars, just Mars, like not like Mars, but like a flaw. There's little flaws here and there. There's dust on it. Anyway, yeah, that's the ascent stage. That's where the astronauts get to go. And then when it's time to leave, doesn't rotate, but it pops off. And there on that camera, it's the back of it. It pops right off. It actually, in some of the later missions, they actually set up a camera to watch that thing launch, okay, off of the descent stage where it was set. And, you're used to watching rockets take off, and they just move very slowly. It's going to slowly rise from the launching pad and gain speed. This, because the gravity was so low and there's no air resistance because there's no air on the moon, it just popped right off. Just went. If you have a chance to watch an old tube or wherever, maybe the NASA channel or something, to watch the launch of the ascent stage from the moon. It's just weird. It's weird to watch it because it's just not like the launches that we're used to. I'm going to wipe this down again because I've been manipulating it quite a lot. But yeah, it should watch it anyway. I wanted to show you that, in fact, over a period of time, I think I started working on this in April because I finished the submarine in March. There was a lot of time away because we got to see the solar eclipse in April. So I finished the submarine after being away for some reason earlier in the year. And then went away again, and then went away again, and then went away again. And a week after next, I'll be away again. Then in a week or so after that, I'll be away again. So it's not just disrupting this stream, but it feels like and it feels that way because I think it's the truth. I haven't really been home for more than like 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, since practically the beginning of the year. Okay, well, that explains some of the slow progress on this. It's been half as much time working on this as I would ordinarily have if I'd been not away. Okay, so having test fit the ascent stage to this and getting it to work was a good thing to do that because it didn't work, it didn't fit, and then it did, so that was good. And I also, by doing that, was able to say, it would look really fine if this whole thing was just painted gold, except for the little bit here where the ascent stage rocket motor is. And so I am going to do that, and that will actually allow me to move forward rather than wasting an entire couple of days doing some masking and respraying. So that's good. And then on the bottom, just the inner circle here is going to be painted darker metallic color. So and that'll be fine. The rest of this will be painted gold. And then at some point I will be getting some scissors and very carefully cutting some of that Mylar, that gold foil Mylar, and attaching it with contact cement to this. And then this bit, this little roundy bit here, is like a tank or some sort, and that will stick out through the Mylar. And then on the back here, I'll just shape it, just shape it to this area. Wrap it around, do a little cut there, fold it over. There's enough Mylar material that I can make two mistakes. I can make two mistakes while I'm wrapping it. And then after it's wrapped, after these are painted, so I'll be doing some painting on Monday. I'll be painting the ladder and the platform and the top and the bottom. Silvery colors, and then I have to do the Mylar wrap, and I want to do that before I start doing all the assembly of all those little pieces of the landing struts. So yeah, that'll be, parts of it are relaxing painting, like the ladder and the platform. That's no big deal to be painting those, other than that I have to paint one side and then flip it over and paint the other. And painting this bit and this bit won't be too hard. I should be able to get the edges fairly smooth because there's an edge there to guide the paint. Yeah. And if there's a problem, I can scrape it off a little bit and do some gold touch-up. The assembly of all these struts, though, I'm just anticipating it being just tedious and frustrating and hopefully not breaking anything. Because after these are painted, I'll have to clear some of the paint off the protrusions and the insides of these holes. There's a little bit of cementing that will be done in these holes here that'll be opened up in the Mylar. And then the very last thing, the ta-da moment, is putting some cement in the holes of the bases of these and cementing them onto the base of the landing gear. And once that's done, then the LEM will be done. And then I move on to the command module. And the command module, take this off. I don't need this rubber glove anymore. The command module is I'm not sure how that's going to go, because the detail in the control panels is terrible. And there's windows, and there's very, very shallow embossing, which doesn't really match up. So one thing I'll be doing is the inside of the hatch. There's hardly any detail in the inside of the hatch of the model, but this is what the hatch looked like. Okay. About the only thing that exists in the model is the window. And then tiny little bits maybe of some of the latches, the multiple pressure holding latches. So I printed this out so that I could make the inside of the hatch kind of look a little bit like the real hatch. The whole inside of the command module is kind of painted this light blue color. The paint I have is a little bluer than this, but it's fairly close. But the other thing that maybe we'll see how it goes, how my skills are, is this is what the control panel is supposed to look like. And the control panel that comes with the model has none of this detail imprinted on it. there's just vague hints, shallow embossing of some of these things. And so be doing some not very relaxing painting, trying to, because you can see inside, the hatch opens and there's little windows and you can kind of see inside, especially if you rotate it inside the command module. And so I want to at least get a hint. If not this, I want to be able to give a hint of what the control panel actually should look like, so that it's not just this painting instructions that say paint it all blue. Well, no, that misses the point of the control panel. You know, when you're sitting inside on these benches, which are not painted blue, they're painted kind of white, so I'm going to have to play with that. Their seats are not good. I don't know if you can see this, but essentially it's like a piece of canvas that's just strapped to a bar on the top and a bar on the bottom. I suppose that was fine when you're in space because you're weightless, but I can't imagine that was terribly comfortable. Taking off. Anyway, you can see the whole thing is kind of this blue color, which they do tell you to paint it blue, but the seats are not blue. So I'm going to do my best to try to, on the inside of the command module, which is why I haven't gotten around to it, is that there'll be some opportunity for detail painting. And I'm going to do my best to, like I said, I'm not going to be able to replicate this. But at least I can give the impression of there being, different kinds of instruments on it, and buttons and circuit breakers and things like that. Anyway, yeah. The command module will be that way. And then the windows will be a challenge as well, just like they were on the lunar module. Yeah. So Dyson Dungeons runs a Dungeons and Dragons show. It is a really, really good show that streams with a live chat on Twitch 3 Sundays a month at 2. Catch it. And if you can't catch it with a live chat, then you should definitely watch previous episodes on YouTube, because it's really good. Sometimes there's deadly combat. I can say that because my character was mostly dead twice during combat. There is the search for the perfect pretzel. Sometimes pizza by the slice. Why not? But it's really good, and it takes place in a world that our DM created on her own, and it's pretty amazing. So if you can possibly do that, check out our episodes either with the live chat or on YouTube, and have everybody you know and strangers you meet also do the same, because we'd like to get as many viewers as we possibly can. Those of you who have become followers or YouTube sponsors, I guess, I want to thank you. And if you really would like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons and do that. I'm going to, through next week, 3 sessions, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, continue working on the Apollo. If everything goes okay, not great, because it never does, but if it goes okay, I should have this done by the end of the week, if not sooner, but definitely, hopefully, by the end of the week, all of this will be it'll be one thing, okay? And it will have spindly little legs that fold in and out, that hold this up and supports the ascent stage of the LEM. And then I can start working, after I get back from the next time I am gone, working on the command module. If everything goes really great, really great, I should finish this no later than Wednesday, and I can actually spend a little time Wednesday and on Friday finding the pieces for the command module and starting the, as you have seen, exciting process of sanding them down so that they fit and don't look gross. But yeah, next week, Monday, there'll be some painting, maybe a little bit of assembly, and this will start to take shape, and it will go well or it won't. And if it doesn't, then you'll hear me grumble. And if it does, you'll hear me go, oh, that was a surprise. It actually worked. We'll find out which way it goes. But in the meantime, yeah, support Dice and Dungeons. Watch our Dungeons and Dragons show. It is wonderful. And maybe after I get back from my next trip, there might even be some minifigs to paint instead. That would be really good. I would really like that if instead of, immediately going on to the command module, there was actually an opportunity to work on some minifigs. I haven't painted those in quite some time. Just a teaser, something to look forward to. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you watching, listening, and any support that you might give us. I'll be back on Monday, and these will be gold, except for those two things. Except for those two things, these will be gold. And they'll be starting to go together. See you then. Have a good weekend.